here. Deadline: 14,000 Disneyland cast members will vote in the next 10 days on whether to authorize a strike. This is a huge, huge story right here. 14,000. This is all the ride technicians. These are ride operators. These are, custodial. These are candy makers, hotel cast members. This is a lot of people. 14,000. Culture, if I'm wrong, Disneyland Resort, I think they have anywhere between 28 to 32,000 cast members right now.
Somewhere in that ballpark, yeah. I think it's been as high as 35, but they did a lot of cast reductions around the global crisis. So, yeah, I think you're correct. Yeah.
It was at 35 at one point. I know that peak there, but I think operationally, I think they're probably sitting right around there. I'd have to double check, but. I would have to double check as well, but it's around that time. So 14,000, it's basically half of the entire Disneyland Resort going, you know what, we might strike. And that is huge. The largest bargaining unit of Disney workers in California, representing everyone from custodians and ride operators to candy makers and merchandise clerks, today announced that a strike authorization vote is scheduled for Disneyland cast members. The results are expected to be announced by July 20th after votes are tallied and the unions have been notified. Have notified cast members. Unions representing 14,000 cast members at Disneyland, Disney California Adventure, Downtown Disney, and the Disney hotels entered into negotiations with the company on April 24th, asking for what they are saying are fair wages, a fair attendance policy, seniority increases, and safe parks for cast members and guests. And we've covered this a little bit on That Park Place. I think you've already seen a video on this channel. The reason I'm bringing it up today is not only to clarify from the last show what this is really about and what they're asking for, like the fair attendance policy, for example. That is, people will note that a couple of years ago, Disneyland completely altered their attendance policy for cast members. Previously, it was a much more flexible system. They made it far more restrictive after they had some abuse following the pandemic and attempting to hire as many hands as possible. Unfortunately, that included some abusers of the system, and they changed it to a far more strict system, which for cast members, that have like a second job elsewhere or are taking care of family or are going to school, well, obviously that's not preferable, as one could probably expect. But there is an update to this particular story. This is Brooke Barnes here on Twitter. Brooke Barnes of the New York Times. It at least that's what the that's what's included here. It says right here, the union standoff with Disneyland over and new contract is getting more acrimonious. More than 400 Disney cast members in costume will rally at the park's entrance on Wednesday afternoon. That's tomorrow, folks. Amid of a strike authorization vote. That is a significant escalation here. Again, this is getting pretty serious pretty fast. If they do authorize a strike and they cannot come to an agreement, operations at Disneyland Resort effectively cannot continue. Guys, what do you think about all this?
I gotta say, that's going to be must-see news if that's happening tomorrow, because 400 cast members, I could see this happening because, let's be real here, we've covered a lot of how badly Disney has been treating their employees, and a lot of people haven't even been able to make the cut just because of how they look. It's not a good system. I think that this was kind of a looming thing that could happen, and I'm impressed that a lot of the people there are actually willing to stand up for this. However, comes down to, is the strike actually going to work in their favor? And a lot of times, unfortunately, strikes do not. So it just kind of comes down to, especially where Disney is right now financially, I don't think they're truly going to get what they're looking for. But I do think, as far as what the C-suite's going to see, this could be a really bad scenario real fast of what kind of actions could be taking place. And the news is going to have a field day with this one. So we'll see.
Oh, yeah. Bob?
So I think I told you guys in a previous episode or two, but my background is with human resources and labor relations, and so I'm very familiar with working with unions. I've worked on the union side, I've worked on the corporate side, and what's going to happen, kind of what Nolan said, is that they're going to go ahead and they may go ahead and strike. But the thing I found, and this is not against the employees or anything like that, but typically what happens is, the union and the company will go to labor relations, meeting. They'll try to hash out the contract. This contract has been done now since Father's Day in June. So it's been several weeks. I'm surprised they're not going back to the table to try to negotiate a little bit more. But, I think the union's thinking that, well, we'll just pull one over on Disney and we're going to try to, get what we want. The problem is that, unlike, auto workers and other people who are union who can go and, help out other, unions, there's not really a lot of employees that can, cross a picket line for this type of situation. So what's going to end up happening is Disney's going to hire a bunch of people, to work as temporary workers. That's what, well, yeah. And some people call them scabs and whatnot. It's probably the improper term, obviously, but they hire people to cross the picket line to work as a temporary worker until the contract is ratified. And what's going to happen is Disney's going to work with them. And typically what I found when it comes to these labor relation agreements, the company will put so much out on the table, ask for, more. Company will come back and say, no, we're not going to do that. We'll do this instead. And it gets to the point where the company says, look, this is our last and final offer. Either you take this or the contract's going to continue to get worse for the employees because, we're trying to work with you and give the whatever we can. And so the employees will, get what they think they wanted. But in the end, sometimes it's less. They end up getting less money, less benefits, less something is taken from the employees or is, not as good as what they thought it was going to be. And the longer they're out, on the picket lines, the more the employees suffer, which is really unfortunate. So I don't know that that's going to happen. I kind of have a feeling that, they may strike. I don't think it's going to take as long for them to kind of come to an agreement on the union contract. The union, unfortunately, caves more than they typically admit to. But that's my experience from the union side from a couple different unions that I've worked with. So,
well, I mean, you're correct. I mean, your evaluation of everything there is correct. I'm going to say there was a reason Walt did not like unions. He was dead set against them and very anti-communist and anti-socialist, very anti-red. He did not like them. He would have fought tooth and nail to never have them for obvious reasons. He always felt, come in, we'll have a handshake and a decision. And I do feel like that was always the best way to go. You never get what you deserve. You only get what you negotiate. And that's, again, if people believe they're poor negotiators or they never get what they want, they get into the unions. Now, there are good unions and bad unions. Disney unions have never really got what they need for a very long time. I'm mostly on the employee sides here, but or cast member sides here. But that was when the cast members were of a little higher stature, a little higher quality, people who were invested. And at both Disney World and Disneyland, and last time I was at the Disneyland Resort, I noticed that there was a staggering amount of fall off in what was being offered. Now, there's still great cast members out there. I still always write people's names down, what time it was and where I was, and so I can let people know who's doing a good job. I'm not one to complain unless you just are a complete jerk to like a little kid or something. But now these people are less. They're just less than what. And this is a general statement, not a specific statement. It's just a little bit less. So they're asking for more. They've been underdone for quite some time. Should they be taken care of better? Could Disney stand to take a little less profit at the parks? Well, obviously. I mean, look at what they just did to Tiana's mountain thing, which I know you're going to get into in a minute. But I don't even know what you call that thing. It's definitely not a bayou. It's I'll stop. But anyway, so as far as this labor issue, I don't think it'll take all that long. Disney doesn't want to rely on replacement workers, and the capacity of the parks will be greatly reduced. I mean, there's a lot of different departments here that are interconnected, as the article described, but I don't think it's going to take as long as people think. And not only that, they're going to have a mouthpiece out there who I just now despise, despite her last name being Disney. She's going to be out there rattling everybody's cages and everything else. So, and good on her for that.
That's Abigail.
But she's not a very thoughtful person. Anyway, all that being said, I would say 2 weeks. I would say 2 weeks. If it gets to the point where they're striking, I'd say it'll probably be about 2 weeks because they can't afford to go much longer than that.
This whole cast member thing, striking. I was part of a union at Disney. I can tell you this: they didn't do diddly squat for me. That is the situation that I was in. I've had other cast member friends of mine who the union actually did work for, and that's great. It's just that they did not work for me, unfortunately. However, they have the right under the contracts that they have to do what they're doing right now. If it affects Disneyland, it is what it is. I just think that Disney needs to they need to take better care of their cast, because if they do, maybe they'll have better quality cast members.
Just want to go ahead and finish off this story real fast. Mice Chat's article, it says the results of the strike authorization vote are expected to be announced by July 20th, 2024. But if Disney doesn't settle quickly, plans surrounding the upcoming D23 day at Disneyland on August 8th, coinciding with the D23 Ultimate Fan event or the D23 Expo on August 9th, 10th, and 11th, could be messy, as cast are very likely to authorize a strike. A worker strike would be difficult for park management. We've heard rumors they are planning to fill as many empty positions at Disneyland as possible, with workers from California Adventure, since their contract isn't up for negotiation until September. That's a very interesting, update to this as well. Maybe that's why 400 people will be protesting outside of Disneyland tomorrow.
The cast member situation is fascinating to me, because Disney is not doing a good job of quieting this noise, either publicly or with the cast members right now. Bob Iger famously screwed up the actors strike and extended that out for the entire industry because he inflamed a bunch of people who were ready to be inflamed. Anyway, speaking of Dormammu and the dark dimension over there, this is one that I'm waiting with bated breath to find out what happens over the next few days here, to see if somehow they can pull their selves out of the fire. That was the tweet I thought would be coming up here. 400 cast members in costume will rally Wednesday. That's tomorrow. So
Yes.
that's going to be an interesting look. And I don't know what they mean by in costume either. I'm hoping. Well, I think that it doesn't matter. I think you're fired if you show up in the wrong kind of costume here. If you're a friend of a character here, I'm hoping this is just the the Main Street costume or the confectionery costume, not Goofy walking down the street with a protest sign. That is the image that I don't think will ever go away if that somehow manages to happen on the street.
400 beloved Disney characters, all with picket signs.
Oh no! We're in trouble now. The iconography, I mean, it lives on. People remember the iconography of the Disneyland Paris cast members protesting in the park. Now, their laws are a little bit different. You can't do that in America, that's for sure. But the imagery coming out of Disneyland Paris at around that time, it really made headway worldwide. So these things get a lot of traction. They get a lot of coverage from local media and so forth. And this is why a journalist from the New York Times is even covering this, because it is an important story. Jonas, I do hope no characters are in costume outside, likely because Disneyland Resort cast members are allowed. They actually take their own cast costumes home with them, which was a policy implemented, I want to say, probably the mid 2000s, which was weird. But because of that, now they have access to actual costumes.
Can I say something on Paris?
Used in the park.
So, it's interesting because, like the whole union thing can be a bit of a touchy topic. Some of them work, some of them don't. And you see like what's going on with the Paris situation, it looks like, with them having those flags and stuff like that, to the common man who doesn't know what's going on, you might think, oh, this is a part of like a normal Disney parade or something like that. Yeah. It kind of shows the double-edged sword of Disney because, they've been very, very prominent holding flags for certain kinds of, agendas and such they like. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but when you start incorporating real world issues into a fantasy land, if this was a park where you wouldn't see like nothing, that includes like maybe even stuff fitting to stuff that would be on the other side of the spectrum. When you have just a neutral ground where there's literally nothing from the outside world comes in unless you are literally a guest of that park. When you start doing like, hey guys, we're celebrating this push this month, then it starts being like, well, hey, why can't we bring in like a union flags or something like that and put Mickey Mouse holding that? It murks the water as opposed to, kind of like with at Christmas time, where it's like, it doesn't matter what your background is. This is about Christmas. Let's celebrate it. They've completely eradicated this whole neutral ground possibility. And now it's like, well, how's come they can't talk about these sort of things because you were okay with them talking about these kinds of agendas? It's murky.
It is. It'll be interesting. I'm going to Disneyland tomorrow, so I it doesn't say what time they're going to be there, but maybe it's morning, maybe it's afternoon. But I'll definitely be trying to scope out and see what's going on.
Bring your camera, man. Bring your camera.
Well, I'm doing a live stream, so the camera will be with me, and I'll be capturing everything live. And I always have 2 phones with me, so I'm sure I'll capture some other footage, and I'm sure I'll be giving it to that park place as well. So.
Speaking of flags, people might remember when this happened at Disneyland. Yeah.
Wow.
I
some people about that one.
they get things through, and and
this is why you keep politics out of the theme parks.
I agree. But as we, like you said, Nolan, as we introduce things like pride events and so forth, and we start to removing patriotic decor, and we do all these things in order to boost all these causes, the line between fantasy and reality really gets blurred in a bad way, I would say, and people feel inappropriate to bring in things that maybe don't belong in a fantastical theme park that is transportative in nature, or at least it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be escapist entertainment, and yet it seems like we can't escape from certain things. That was a highlight from our live stream on That Park Place Podcasts online, where the full stream can be found at the link in the description. But what about you? What do you think about this very intriguing and fascinating story? Please let us know in the comments below. Like this video if you did like this video. Share us out, as it helps us out tremendously against the YouTube algorithm. And thank you so much for watching. T3, BO. Please comment, like, and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to That Park Place Podcasts online, your source for exclusive content and highlights from WDW Pro, The Pro Show, and That Park Place, for all the news that should be fun.